Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm on location in glorious Troy, Michigan right now, picking my kids up from school, and I had an extra minute before they come out, so I thought I would cover a topic that I just explained to a client of mine on the phone, who is also an investor that I met online, and we've done some work together. Um, that topic is HUD homes. And basically, HUD homes is, as I describe it, the lowest tier of distressing for a property. And when I say that, I mean that it is basically a property that has had the longest period of limited management and or vacancy. HUD is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and a HUD home is most commonly it is a house that was foreclosed on, and it was purchased through a federally insured loan, specifically an FHA loan. And how that process works, I mean, I've kind of described already in previous videos how the foreclosure process works and things like that. But long story short, the bank loans out money on a property. The person they loan it to defaults on it. If that loan was a federally backed FHA loan, when the bank forecloses on the property, they take the property, hand it to the government. The government gives them back a certain amount of the money, and the government then assumes control over the property. Um, the upsides to HUD houses is that pretty much everything's already been wiped out. I mean, as far as delinquencies, other tax issues, anything else, there's very little hidden print when you purchase a HUD house, because it's already, I mean, for lack of a better way to say it, it's already at the bottom of the barrel. It's already fallen through all the cracks. Very limited hidden surprises with HUD homes, and it is a somewhat mechanized process. Uh, so when you find these HUD homes, I mean, they're listed on the MLS, and they're typically administered by a local real estate brokerage. So they are on the regular market. They have their own HUD specific market store. The HUDHomestore.com is a place that you can go and view houses that are up by HUD. Um, and it's definitely worthwhile look. I mean, it's all over the U.S. I mean, there's properties in every state in the country there. I mean, they're in various conditions and various areas that you may or may not want to be investing in. Um, Also, because they have most likely been on vacant for a longer period of time, because they have already gone through the foreclosure process, possibly the short sale process, possibly they went to sheriff's sale, they went through redemption. The bank held them for as long as the bank decided to hold them. They went through all those machines. They ended up with the government. They got all the stuff done that the HUD winterizes the properties and puts them under management. So they do some of the basic things to them that they can do. And then basically when it goes time for people to take a look at them, there's a set of HUD keys. In Michigan, there's 7 HUD keys that open every HUD property in the state, and a lot of different people have these keys. I mean, property managers have them, builders have them, agents have them, other investors have them. There's a lot of traffic that can go through these houses, and many times a HUD house could be, if not damaged thoroughly from moisture or previous molding or something like that. I mean, there could be problems with the property structurally. There Usually that'll be addressed in a document that they have up at the HUD store that is basically their repair list, their repair escrow list, that they've already their property condition report. They've already gone through it and taken a look at everything that is going on with the property, so you can kind of see it right there on the site. So I mean, there's been work done, and the risk is potentially there for people who are not willing to put some work in. Now, as investors, we're kind of in a different class, because ugly is pretty good to us. So if we can get a property in one of our target areas under market value that's damaged, we have the mechanisms in place to bring it back up to the neighborhood norm, and then turn around and potentially sell it or rent it out. So that's a good thing. So, I mean, for the most part, HUD specifically is 1 to 4 unit residential properties that are acquired through the foreclosure action initiated on an FHA insured loan. Um, So that's where they come from. When they put them up, it's a bid process that they go through, and the individual listing is put up through several phases. And during each of those phases, different people are eligible to bid on the properties. In the initial phase, the only people who are able to bid on it is government agencies and nonprofits. They also have another program called the Good Neighbor Next Door. I believe that's the name of it, which is, I believe, I want to say firemen, police. I think teachers are eligible. And the premise is that if you've got, the house next door to you is pretty funky and you want to purchase it, you can at a drastically reduced price. That's a real specialty program, and it really doesn't apply to investors. After it leaves that period, it moves into the exclusive bid period. And during the exclusive bid period, the only people who are eligible to bid on it is all the previous people that I talked about, and then also owner occupants. Now, this is going to be people who are going to buy the property to live in it, and the intention is that it's their primary residence. This is really something that you don't want to mess around with. There are investors who try and skirt this rule by, even though they're buying it as an investment to fix it up or flip it, they really don't live in it, or they put their kid in it or something, when realistically they've got a primary residence elsewhere. Do not do this. I'm not even joking, because you will go to jail. It's not even like a mess around thing, and it's not even one of those vague government programs where it's like, yeah, no one's ever going to know, because they send people out to check. HUD clearly differentiates between investors and owner occupants, and it definitely is giving the owner occupant preferential treatment because their goal is to get Americans back into houses. So they do want to get these vacant homes used, but they want primarily to get them used by homeowners, because for them that's really their mandate as an organization. So they do get them preferential treatment. After that initial lottery period, which depending on where you're at, I'm sorry, not lottery, exclusive period. The lottery is something different. That's basically, state to state it changes how long that period is, but it'll tell you right there when the bid deadline is for that. If it does not sell during that exclusive period, then it moves on to the next period, which is the extended bid period. At this point, now property is available to be bid on by anybody. That includes investors, and that's good. Once it switches to that period, the next move that you can do is, once it moves over into the extended period, it's fair game for anybody. So that bidding process gets done on the HUD Home Store. You can browse the HUD Home Store as a person. Anybody can browse it, but to place bids, it has to be placed through a broker. So you have to use a licensed real estate agent and a broker that has, basically the ability to bid on HUD houses. So it's not the kind of thing that an individual can bid on. But as a buyer, even as an investor buyer, you don't necessarily, you're not eating any commissions or anything like that. So it's not that big of a deal. The only issue at all is that you have to have an agent who knows that you're an investor and knows how to work with investors, because the bidding process, for the most part, you're going to underbid whatever they're asking. And there's considerably more work for the agent with a HUD house for a much lower check than they conventionally would get with other loans. So that being said, the listing agent for a HUD house isn't going to do anything. This property is under management. They basically get huge portfolios of property to deal with. They're not even going to see your offer until it's already been cleared with HUD. So when the offer has been put in on the HUD Home Store, HUD reviews it after they accept or reject it. Then after the fact, the listing agent actually gets to see it. So as far as, if you want to get it inspected after the fact, or if you want to, do any kind of house inspection to it as far as getting utilities turned on or anything like that, these homes are all winterized. They are shut down. So if you want to turn them back on to go through them, you are going to be your agent is going to be doing all that. They're going to be coordinating it. They're going to be there to open the door. They're going to be sitting there when the electric comes on, the gas comes on, and a lot of agents won't do that. HUD houses are especially good for builders who kind of sight unseen know what the house is going to be worth and know what they're going to have to do to it, so they don't really have to go through that same inspection process. Um, I mean, for the most part, if you're buying a property then it's in a good area, you're going to know whether or not it's worth buying, regardless of whether or not the hot water heater doesn't work. That's not really as an investor what you gotta. I mean, you're not going to spend your time and energy on that. If you got such a low margin in this property that you're worried about whether or not the $200-300 water heater repair is going to make it not profitable, that means it's not a very good deal. So, long story short, I mean, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. If they approve your offer, the cool thing with HUD House is you don't have to actually put any paperwork in outside of what your number is. You don't have to put any contracts together. You don't have to give them funds. You don't have to do anything until after they've approved it. So once it's in the extended period, it typically is every 24 hours. It's its own auction. So if somebody puts in a bid at 11:58 on one day and they're the only person to put in that bid, that's the only bid that property got that day. That could be very useful, because every day you can kind of reappraise your bid. Now, what you don't want to do is supremely lowball, because they have a flat number. And if you go way too low for what the value of the house would be, they just won't respond to you. They'll just reject it outright. And if you do that enough, the listing agent may just stop taking bids from you because he'll just assume that you're a lowballer. I have seen that happen where they just don't accept bids anymore. So, I mean, there is enough human interaction in this where it's not a machine that you could just throw $4 bids at and hopefully one will stick. Also, at the same time, though, you can offer a number under, and if it gets close enough within their threshold, at least from my experience, and I don't believe this is a policy or anything, I don't know the details on the other side. I've met a couple people that work for some of the listing offices that do list HUD homes, and every one of them kind of handles it a little different. So I can't tell you that this is a absolute, but a lot of times I will go and, pick a number that's 80% under what it is, something similar, and I'll shoot that off and see what they take, and if they respond, and they can either counter, reject you outright, accept someone else's bid. If they counter you, they will counter you at the number that they're willing to take. I have not seen it where they counter you and then they accept lower than that number, at least without, some time elapsing. So, for example, I just put a bid in the other day on a house that was listed for $76,000, I believe, and the counter came back this morning. I listed it. I think the final amount that it ended up being was 62. I think is what I put in, and they came back with a bid that was a little bit higher than what their net would have been. But it's still within threshold. So now I know for a fact that that's the number that I'm dealing with for that house. Another note on what those numbers are is that HUD uses the net to HUD, quote, net to HUD amount to determine, what they're going to walk away with. And what that includes is your offer price minus any commissions to the buying and selling agent, or the listing and selling agent, minus any repair escrows that you ask for, because you can ask for an allotment that goes to closing costs and repairs and things like that. So minus those costs to them, the net to HUD is the number that they care about. In this particular example of the bid that I just put in and I got countered on, the net to HUD that they would have gotten had they accepted my original offer was $56,000 something and change. The net to HUD that they countered back with was $59,000. That doesn't mean that I can, when I go to write the offer again, offer them $59,000 and they'll take it. It means I have to do the math to add in what those commissions will be and what the repair escrow I'm asking for will be. And I add that on top of that 56, 59 number, and that will get me. So figure if it's $3,000 in commissions and it is another $1,000 in repair escrow, it's going to be $4,000. I'm going to have to be at $63,000 in order to get the property, or whatever. I mean, the numbers are coming off the top of my head at the moment, but that's generally that's something to take into account. So when they do counter you, if they counter you, that's the number that they'll take. That's the absolute number, in my experience, that they'll go. They won't really negotiate under unless you wait 2 weeks and they counter again because it still hasn't sold. They drop it down. Um, and that's if you want the house, that's the number you're dealing with, which is good because if you've got that final number, I mean, at least you're somewhere. When you have 2 days after you basically get an offer accepted to get the paperwork to them, which realistically, unless you're really close to the office, like I'm lucky, our management companies are very close to where I live, so I can just drive them, to where those offices are. But for the most part, what that usually means is that you have a day to do the paperwork and then you overnight it to the management company that's dealing with it. In our area, there's only two that deal with all the HUD properties that we have. So, I mean, that's kind of convenient. Once you start to know people in those offices, things get a little easier on you. So, I mean, long story short, once you've got that paperwork in, they want the EMD is either $500 or $1,000 depending on the final purchase price of the property. They're fairly fixed in what they're expecting. Cash deals are very, very smooth. You can also get FHA 203K loans on these properties. You can't get conventional financing because they're not going to appraise. I mean, the houses are typically in a state that requires work that a lot of conventional loans just won't play ball with. So a 203K loan or a rehab loan will, and cash obviously is always king. So you fill out their paperwork. You use their contract. They will print out a completed contract for you. There's no contingencies or much wiggle room, at least that I've seen. If you've got a trick that you've figured out that you can get them to, negotiate or play ball with, then leave me a comment or drop me an email at Tommy, Tommy at DesmondRealty.com because I'd like to know it. As of yet, I have not really seen them play too much ball. Once the deal's been approved at the number, you print out their sales contract, you add in your proof of funds and your EMD, and that all goes. As far as closing goes, up until recently, they had their own closing agents that they used. And it was always, I think there was, in our state, I think we only had a couple. In Michigan, there was only a couple that dealt with it. They've recently got rid of that requirement. As of, I think, last year, they eliminated that. So now you could use your own title company, your own closing agency, and they facilitate the entire closing. So it's very, very convenient. There's no seller side to deal with. Basically, they just get everything over to your closing company, and then whenever you go, it's just you sitting down with the title, your title rep or your closer, your attorney, whoever's doing it, and you just sign the paperwork, and that's it. They if you're dealing with cash, especially, they just give you deed in hand, and you transfer the property over with the city, and you're good to go. You have acquired a property at hopefully underneath market value. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea, an overview of what HUD houses are, gives you some kind of an insight into why they're potentially really beneficial. There's a lot of opportunity with them. I personally have purchased, I like HUD houses. I purchased many HUD houses. I mean, some of them we have flipped for, obviously they take work, but I mean, we clean them up real nice and we flip them for, 100% returns on some of them. All the same rules of investing apply: location, location, location. But it's one of those places where you can really find a turd, polish it up real good, and potentially make yourself some really good money. So look into it, find an agent to put a bid in for you, and make some money.